Hello, everyone. Welcome into another episode of the Announcer's Hour. I'm your host, Patrick McCall, but today we have another amazing guest. Scot Gladstone joins us. He's the voice of the Glacier Range Riders and Baseball's Pioneer League, and also the regular broadcaster for a lot of collegiate athletics, including the University of Washington up there in the Pacific Northwest. So, Scott, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Patrick?
I'm doing great. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your current roles?
My official title with the Glacier Range Riders, I am the director of broadcasting, communications, and community relations. Similar kind of to what a lot of people that work full time or at least full time seasonal with minor league teams are looking at in terms of what their title is. It's usually broadcasting, which covers the play-by-play aspect of it, but also the other many hats that you wear in minor league baseball. So I work full time year round with the Glacier Range Riders in the office during the off season, doing a lot of social media, community, the community relation side of things, which is reaching out to the community partners, helping arrange media, off season stuff, just helping keep connections going during the off season. And then also a lot of the production side of things in terms of hiring, like hiring PA announcers, all the way to like mascots and promo team. Like I have a hand in that, as well as like community appearances and stuff like that. Like when the mascots show up somewhere. And then yeah, a lot of it's the social media PR side of things. Um, and then, yeah, like you mentioned, I also work freelance for a lot of different universities. I've been really lucky to get connected and work a lot with the University of Washington this spring, essentially. There's no true voice of the University of Washington baseball team, but I'm definitely the person that's been in that role the most this spring. So it's something that I've kind of liked to take ownership of and to hopefully be a constant on the airwaves. I missed some midweek games like you said, I'm with the Glacier Range Riders, which is in Montana. University of Washington's in Seattle. But pretty much every weekend series, I've been flying out to the University of Washington to Seattle, and just finding a way to make it work freelance. I'm lucky that the Range Riders support me in that. Obviously, it only benefits them that I continue to kind of get my voice out there and do what I'm good at, and also just be able to continue to work on my craft and hopefully kind of broaden my horizons and my connections. So yeah, University of Washington, also Seattle University, University of Montana, which is right down the road from here. But yeah, UW is where I've really kind of hit a stride this past spring, doing a lot of their baseball games after doing a handful of volleyball, baseball, or I mean basketball, and even gymnastics in the winter.
That's all cool. And by the way, with your unique position, so you get to basically you're flying around all the time. A lot of people travel and stuff, but what's that kind of like managing that? I mean, it's almost like a weekly, I'm assuming at least, or monthly thing to where you have to take those flights. Like, how does that all break down your weekly schedule?
Yeah. So it works out pretty decent in terms of being able to manage my time. Obviously, it's nonstop, but those of us that are in this sports broadcasting, sports media grind, like you're kind of used to the nonstop action. You're kind of addicted to it in a way. So yeah, I mean, I've been really. It's essentially I'm a big written calendar type guy, so I have a written calendar that I have on me at all times, and so beginning of the season, University of Washington reached out. They said, "Hey, like what baseball games can you make? Can you let me know?" And I kind of just went through, made sure I didn't have any weekend commitments with the Range Riders here. And luckily, spring's pretty vacant until the guys show up for our spring training. So yeah, every weekend series I just kind of cleared out, and then basically it's just kind of coming up with um, finding the right flight times. And what's nice is that Kalispell, the Flathead Valley, where the Range Riders are located, it's a fairly small town in the big scheme of things, but a decent sized regional airport. And because we are kind of a tourist hub, we have a really good ski hill in the winter. And obviously, Glacier National Park is here. There's three flights in and out per day from Seattle through Alaska Airlines. So either there's the early morning flight, there's kind of a midday flight, and kind of a late afternoon flight. And usually I'll take like the midday. So those Fridays, I'll go into the office, 8 a.m., I'll show up. We'll have a couple kind of Friday meetings where we talk about get our promo team together, talk about the promo games for the upcoming week and how we're going to promote them on social and to the crowds and everything like that. We'll talk about some branding projects we have in the stadium. A couple of those meetings happen on Fridays, and then as soon as those are done, I say a salute to the office basically, and drive about 10 minutes to the airport, park the car, and then immediately hit the road. Get to Seattle, rent a car there, drive across town. Maybe I have a little time to kill, and I'm lucky two of my best friends live in Seattle, so that's why I stay with when I'm out there. Um, but yeah, and then I'm just driving across rush hour traffic in Seattle basically, and getting in line for a 7 p.m. first pitch, and then stay there for the weekend, and get to hang out with my friends and see my friends there. So it's not like I have an extra hotel cost or anything when I go out there, but it's definitely busy. There's been a couple. I wanted to make sure that I made the season opener, which that was a 4 o'clock first pitch in Seattle. I showed up to work that morning, went to work at 8 a.m., left at the 12:30 flight. You gain an hour, you lose an hour, I guess. So it basically only it's an hour and a half flight, but it kind of only is 30 minutes via the clock, how it works out. And then immediately got there, and it takes, yeah, about 15 minutes to get to the rental car, and another 15 to 20 to drive, or 15 to 30, I guess, to drive across town. So, and then I flew back after the game that night. So it was kind of a behemoth of a day. But again, like my workplace is really adaptable, because again, they'll work with me to figure that out. And I work so hard in the summer for the team, traveling with the team, and really having no days off for the most part there. So they definitely find a way to accommodate me and make sure that kind of my goals in terms of having to leave work a little bit early on Fridays and stuff are made to work, and obviously there's a fair amount of like posting that I have to do on the weekends, and scheduled posts that I need to make sure go out for the minor league team. But yeah, it's nonstop, and the first weekend that I'll be home uh, in the past 2 months essentially will be the weekend that our season starts, the weekend before our season starts. So it's kind of crazy, but I'm making it work.
Yeah, it's all cool. And I've heard, specifically baseball when guys are doing, affiliated ball and stuff like that, crazy travel stories, but you're even deeper into the mix doing the flights. Like, do you ever have any close calls or even bus rides that kind of went haywire?
Yeah, at this point, I haven't. There was last Tuesday. The University of Washington softball team is so big, and they were 2009 national champions, and I'm gonna fill in for a game or two upcoming this spring. But they needed a midweek fill in, and I was like, well, I don't want to miss the opportunity to broadcast softball. That was one of the first championships I remember watching for a team I was rooting for in 2009 when UW won it. So I was like, okay, I can make this midweek work. And it was that midday flight, and then a 6 p.m. first pitch, which I was going to be comfortable making that 6 p.m. first pitch. But then I had a 9:30 flight out, which is definitely cutting it a little bit close. I was like talking to everybody I know, like, okay, hopefully this game lasts 2 hours. I can get to the airport in 15 to 30 minutes, drop the rental car. I have TSA pre-check so I can fly by, and it's a random Tuesday evening, so it shouldn't be that busy. But if any one of those things goes wrong, the rental car bus isn't there. The game goes long. Obviously, there's a rain delay, whatever it is. It could have been sketchy, but it kind of all vacated in general because they called it before I even went out there, and they said there's too much rain. We're just going to cancel the game. So it was kind of nice where, I mean, it was a bummer to not be able to broadcast that game, but probably better than missing a flight. And to this point, there was one. I was covering for the University of Denver men's basketball team. Their broadcaster, his name's Tyler Mon. He's a great guy, and he works for the World Baseball Federation, broadcasting a lot of their games. And so he was in Japan broadcasting an international baseball event like Team Japan, Team Korea, Taiwan, like all these big international programs. And so he was there, and the University of Denver was playing in Missoula, Montana, which is just down the road for me. And I kind of just got lucky and asked if they needed somebody to cover that, and they were like, "Yeah, actually, our guy's going to be in Japan. We were just looking into who's going to cover that." And so I covered those 3 games that they played at like a neutral site tournament here early in the men's basketball season, and then I covered a game that they had in Portland. But I flew into Seattle, rented a car, saw some family that I have out in Seattle, and then it was a couple days after Thanksgiving that I covered the men's basketball game that they had against Portland. And I the whole time I was like, this is fine. I'm taking the last flight out of Seattle. It's a little bit of drive from Portland to Seattle, but it'll be fine. Like I got so much time to spare. The game goes into double overtime. And after it goes to overtime once, I'm like, okay, this is fine. Hopefully Denver wins because they were 0-3 the first three games I covered them, and I was like, I just want to cover a win. And then it goes into double overtime, and then I'm going, oh my god, like this is gonna be brutal. And luckily it didn't go into a third. They lost, but at that point I was like, okay, like whatever, let's just get a final score. And then there was just like a random road accident that kind of slowed down traffic for a little bit, like in nowhere, Washington, while I was driving up. And it was the Sunday after Thanksgiving, so it was busy at the airport, but it it was okay. I made it. It was fine, but it definitely made me sweat a little bit because yeah, I got there pretty late in the big scheme of things. But to this point, I have not missed a bus, have not missed a plane, and yeah, I always make sure that triple check your alarms and always show up early. And I'd rather sit in the parking lot 45 minutes to when the bus is going to leave and kind of like zone out basically and just wait for the bus to show up than miss it. Yeah, there's always better to be early than late.
Yeah, I know there's been some situations where the bus is just kind of running late or something like that. I remember when they had a series up in that same section of the country. I had to go to
Yeah.
Calais, Washington for a Black Bears Raptors
Yep.
game, and then it was like the interstate or something was had road work the whole summer. Completely nightmarish levels of traffic for that. So it can all happen. But, when did you get started in broadcasting sports, and can you take us through that?
Yeah. So I knew I was interested in sports media early in high school. Like when I wasn't playing sports, I was watching sports and watching ESPN and Stuart Scott, Scott Van Pelt, that kind of era of just being a sports center junkie and so I was lucky. I kind of grew up doing a lot of that, but I was also playing a lot of sports. I played football, basketball, lacrosse, track and field, all in college, or I mean in high school, um, and then uh, and then I actually ended up playing on the club soccer team in college. So I'm just somebody that's kind of just like a nut. I love the competitive nature of sports. It's obviously part of the reason why I'm working in it. And so for me, it was always play, play, play. And then it was right around college, like right when that shift. I opted not to play college football. I was looking at some D3s in the Northeast and kind of weighing that option, but I knew kind of my playing career was done. But there's that hankering that you get, and everybody that's a former athlete knows it, and it's just like you just need to be around the game and be around the competitive nature and the wild, almost inhuman moments that sports can provide, like the wonder of like it this team's down three, it's the bottom of the ninth, there's two outs, he's down 0-2 in the count, and somehow he hit a grand slam to win the game. Like that doesn't make sense how that magic moment just happened, but you have that 1,000 times when you're an athlete and you just get a craving for more. And so yeah, so in college I went to a D3 school in Colorado called Colorado College. I got very involved with the sports teams there, the athletic department there very quickly. Mostly did PA announcing there because that's just the options that was available. They didn't do broadcasting for a lot of teams. The web stream wasn't necessarily set up yet. But I kind of just leaned into PA announcing and I just said, listen, I'm going to go to all the games anyway, so I'd rather just get paid to do it. And I ran camera back and forth. I stat called. I did all the stuff in the athletic department, pretty much except for broadcasting. Going into my junior year of college, leading up to that summer, that's when I kind of got lucky and um, emailed probably 50 plus summer collegiate teams that were like of decent stature. Definitely looking heavy at the Northwoods League because, as you know, like the West Coast League, like they run really well. They run their brand like minor league teams, and just for the broadcasters as much as the players. They're a good imitation of what it's like. So I got lucky where one team called the Rockford Rivets, they emailed me back the next morning. I emailed them one night and said, "Hey, just wondering if you have any opening for a broadcaster." They emailed me back first thing the next morning saying, we're set. We got a broadcaster this year. Like, appreciate you reaching out, but sorry." And, I just looked at it when I woke up and I was like, okay, well, and I've been getting plenty of those emails back because, that was just the nature of the beast. And then midway through class that morning, I just like checked my email on my phone again and another email, same guy. And he goes, uh, actually, our situation's just changed. Like, our broadcaster is going to go somewhere else. Like, do you have time for an interview? And I'd never broadcast a baseball team. My college didn't have a baseball team. I really hadn't worked any baseball games from any media, sports athletic department, communications department angle yet, but somehow I talked my way into being able to get the job as the broadcaster for the Rivets for the summer, and then yeah, went out to Rockford, had a great time. I also worked a summer in Bristol, Connecticut, with the Bristol Blues. Obviously, Bristol's where the ESPN headquarters are, so that was cool. Reese Davis's son was on the team, so I got to meet him. Um, and yeah, I mean, it was just a blast. Summer collegiate baseball, as you know, is um, a whirlwind, and it's really hard to kind of find stability, but that's just minor league baseball in general. So it prepared me really well for minor league baseball. But yeah, that's really how I got my start. Is luckily the folks in Rockford, Illinois, gave me a chance when I probably didn't deserve one. And it was kind of just a right place, right time, right email to the right person type situation. And but once you get through a Northwoods League season, that's 72 games in 76 days, and you learn how to take care of your voice. You learn how to come up with broadcast topics. When you're playing the same team 5 times in a row, you realize how to get through a game when it's 16-0 in the eighth inning. All that stuff, like you learn a lot, and it's a grind. But yeah, I mean, it was a blast, and that really kicked it off and led me to where I'm at.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fun things that happened at that, minor league and summer collegiate level. And, as you mentioned, it's just kind of a grind to get out there. But do you remember any like crazy games or I guess I don't even know if game, but stories that came from your time and doing summer college baseball?
Yeah, I mean, the one that comes to mind for me is the Rockford Rivets playing the Madison Mallards mid to late summer, and it went to the 14th inning at 0-0. That was definitely one of those games where you learn what to talk about because offense is fun. You get to come up and oh, this guy's already hit 2 home runs today. It's crazy. This guy's about to hit for the cycle. He's trying for it, whatever. It's a lot different when it's 0-0 and the offenses just can't hit the broadside of a barn. And yeah, I mean that was one. And then we ended up losing 1-0 at our home stadium in the bottom of the 14th. Obviously, it was the 14th, so nobody was there. It was rough. But it's those games where you recognize and like I said, you find a way to make it entertaining, to find your voice as a broadcaster, even when you realize there's probably less people listening. It's a more boring game, but how do you still kind of latch people into it? Yeah, I mean that's always the challenge, especially when you play so many games in a minor league season, and you go, well, only the pitcher's mom and dad and the girlfriend of the batter is watching at this point. So how do I not necessarily turn into a stand-up comedian and be able to engage them like that, but at least make this worth listening to at this point, and at least show that I care, because I know that there are people listening that do care. So yeah, I mean that was one of those games though that it was definitely bottom because you go 0-0 and then you lose the game and you just go, I don't know what to say here. Like this is brutal because obviously every time it's 0-0 going to the bottom of the ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, you're begging for that walk-off call. and you don't get it. So like as a broadcaster, that walk-up call is the highlight, and you're preparing for that every time. Like especially, I mean, what I do as a broadcaster is I'm always simulating what can happen here and how am I going to call that. And I'm always begging, like, okay, just do some, pull some magic, and that magic just never happened. And yeah, I mean, it's brutal, but it is those games where you feel drained afterwards, but you also recognize, hey, this is not going to be the last time something like this is going to happen. So getting through it and figuring out the next best way to attack it next time is important.
Yeah, I remember some of those. Actually, the Raptors team I called for last year, it was interesting. They were getting a lot of players still early on in the season, and they went on a 13 game win streak and beat the same team they lost in the first two games. But I think they had like more errors than hits in the first couple games, and it was like
Yep.
those games are hard to get through and stay positive and stuff. But what
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what is your daily routine like for baseball, and I'll say basketball is maybe the two sports you call the most.
Yeah. For baseball, it's pretty simple. In essence, home games are pretty simple. So uh, I don't get to the ballpark until like noon or one. There's some minor league teams and some teams in our league that I've talked with broadcasters that have an emphasis on guys getting there at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. And I just don't think that's feasible. Personally, that's for the entire staff, like because obviously the night before, usually you're at the ballpark until 10 or 11, and for every position, whether you're a suite runner, like running, orders from the kitchen to the suites of, fries or beers, or whether you're a concessions worker or a parking attendant or the broadcaster, your most draining hours are going to be during the game, which is 6:30, 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And so you need to have energy at that point. And if you're getting into the ballpark at 8 a.m., like it's really tough. So I'm lucky that my organization recognizes it. Usually about noon or one, show up, and usually I'll at least have some food beforehand, and then also make sure to bring some because like concession baseball concessions food is good, but you can't live off it for an entire summer. So trying to at least have like some sort of sandwich, or at least some sort of option that'll give you more brain food rather than a hot dog will give you or something like that. And then yeah, and then it's a lot of just updating game notes, preparing kind of stuff like that. That's the storyline, making sure everything's taken care of in terms of media that'll show up that night. Sometimes there's social type videos that we'll shoot, and so getting with our graphic designer and our head of digital media kind of on what we need to do. Oh, we're going to do a quick questionnaire. We're going to do a video of the guys saying dad jokes because Father's Day is coming up, like all that stuff, and making sure um, that we knock that out. Updating the roster. There's usually new players, once a week or so. So that's always a part of it. Um, and then yeah, just preparing, making sure the production side of stuff, because I do have some say in terms of the in stadium show, making sure that's all a lock and online for the game. Like the script is obviously, I kind of phase out of that once everybody shows up, and I let our in stadium production and promotion team kind of handle that. But I still um, am somebody that's kind of starting that ball rolling with making sure the script's ready and everything. And then yeah, then I'm printing out stat packets, media packets, um, and then hopefully finding some time to get in the booth and just kind of go over both rosters a little bit. Baseball's a lot different in the summer working with games, because I'm obviously watching every single game that our team plays. So I'm not doing a lot of research beforehand just because I have 10,000 other things to do in my um, position with the Range Riders. So I don't really have that time, especially for home games, because there's just more fires to put out. Um, but yeah, so a lot of times during the game is when we're on the road is when I'm kind of delving into the other team and our team. Um, Baseball, because of the pace of play, like you can do a lot of it, more of it on the fly, and so that's a lot easier. And then yeah, and then usually I'll have some sort of pregame talk on the field with our in-stadium host. So that's probably about like 6:45 or so, and then 7:05 will be first pitch. I'll usually get on 10 to 15 minutes beforehand. We'll go live on our radio station, broadcast the game, and then afterwards we'll send some sort of short minute long clip to our radio station, write a post game report. I do also do social media like live tweeting or Xing, whatever you want to call it now, um, during the game. I help with the live updates there, and then I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, with the post game, making sure that graphic gets up. A little bit different for road games where I'm just kind of going to the ballpark, get a lot more time to hang out with the guys, go to batting practice, ask guys some questions during batting practice, all that stuff. And obviously just kind of hanging out. It's a lot more chill on the road, checking back with the office, making sure everything that I need done is done. So that's kind of the baseball side of things. Basketball is a lot different because I've only done basketball at least this past year on a freelance basis with the University of Washington or the University of Montana or Denver. Um, and uh, that that's a lot in the preparation beforehand. I for each spotting board, especially for a new school, I'm probably spending like 2 to 3 hours just making it. There's a lot of ways you can automate your spotting board. There's a lot of ways you can um, have somebody else there's different spotting board services, and I think for a lot of people that's a great option. For me, I'm very visual. I have a pretty good kind of like memory once I see something to be able to kind of at least lock it in generally. And so for me, making my spotting boards myself helps me to memorize a lot of the stuff. If I'm typing in, hey, this person was the number one recruit in the state of Washington out of high school, and they scored 23 points per game, then at least I start to get to know that player. And when you're in a freelance basis compared to in the summer, when I know the teams and I mostly know the players. When you're a freelance basis and you're jumping into the middle of a conference schedule or something like that to cover 2 games for the University of Idaho, I have to learn these teams like I've been covering them all season really quickly. And for me, my way to do that is creating those spotting boards, figuring out kind of the talking points that I would want to have on the people, and kind of putting that into the information column. And then at the same time, having their general stats that I would want to go to first, and kind of understanding the story of their season as best I can through making that spotting board and the story of the individual players. And so for me, that's a big part of that game day prep. And then usually it's game day. Like I'm always big on making sure like I'm working on at least a somewhat full stomach, having food before the game. I noticed during the summer if I didn't have lunch or something like that, then I trip over my words a little bit more during the game, and maybe it's just a mental thing, but whatever it is, I just try and stay on top of it there, and then always just showing up ahead of time. University of Washington, University of Idaho, Montana, they all have great production teams, and a lot of them are student led. Like the University of Washington is really student led, but they're incredibly brilliant students. They come up, they tell me, hey, here's a game plan, here's some graphics we have up, and then that's able to just help me key in a little bit more on what their talking points that they're ready for are. Sometimes we'll have a production meeting beforehand where we're kind of start to brainstorm and go over a couple of things that I want to talk. Sometimes I'll bring stuff to them that I found in my research. Specifically, I cover the Husky Classic, which is in mid-December, and there was a player on Boise State who was a couple rebounds away from hitting her 1,000th rebound. She was definitely going to get it. And so I like made sure that, okay, you guys have a graphic ready for that. It's going to be on this play. Like, let's make sure we nail that. And it's something that I'm making sure I'm nailing the call on. Those milestones and understanding the stakes of the game. Why does this game in mid-December matter? That's non-conference. I think that's a big thing I try and key in on that final prep and reading the game notes that the SIDs prepare and everything like that. And then obviously just trying to attack the game the best I can.
All right, a lot of great information there. We'll have a sample of a spotting chart you kind of sent over for a Washington, women's basketball game. And it's funny, actually, is a very similar kind of thing for my basketball charts and stuff.
Yeah.
But, those are all very valuable to have in front of you as you're doing the game. But I'm wondering, what is kind of the difference for you when you're doing a game solo, play by play, and nobody else versus like with someone else and a color guy?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of the first two seasons that I did for the Glacier Range Riders. I was 100% solo for most of the games, unless I had like a guest star in here and there. But um, baseball is really tough to do solo. Um, I'm somebody that I, I make it very clear kind of who I am and what my voice is, and I want people when they're listening to connect with me in some way, and I feel like I can do that to some extent. It's a lot easier to do it with somebody else, and to have somebody else to play off of. Those 0-0 games, that 0-0 game I was mentioning against the Madison Mallards when I was with Rockford. Luckily, for some reason, a guy who was usually a cameraman, he wanted to do some broadcasting as well. He came into the booth that game, so I was really lucky that I had another person to do that with, um, because those games and losing streaks and everything like that are really tough to do solo. Um, Definitely, I depending on the sport. Baseball, I know really well because I broadcast so many games for Glacier and Rockford and Bristol and wherever else. Um, and like basketball, I played, football, I played, soccer, I played. Those sports specifically, like I'm pretty comfortable being solo because I can shade a little bit into the color side of things and be fairly confident in what I'm saying because I know the X's and O's from that angle. Um, And so, yeah, so I, if I'm solo, I have no qualms about fringing a little bit and adding some of that color in there myself. Of course, like I said, like I always love working with a color commentator, and I think it's like it was funny when I started to work Division I games this past year, and the school already had like an alum that used to play that's now a lawyer or something like that that has done color commentary for a while, and okay, she'll show up and help you do the women's soccer game. I was like, I'd never worked with like Division I color commentators that used to play the sport. I just worked with kind of other broadcasters that were still kind of figuring it out. And working with another broadcaster is different than working with a former athlete that's been in the line of fire. Even me saying I played high school basketball, that I'm not going to give the same analysis that somebody who used to play for the University of Washington will. So it was really cool because I just remember the first game that I worked. I didn't know what it was going to be like to work with a brand new person. One, because I'd always known the people that I'd worked with fairly well, but it was kind of just like coming in and just being able to set the stage and kind of fully be just play by play, and and let those color commentators cook and talk about the things that they've lived. Like I'm very much somebody that wants to learn every single game that I'm calling. Um, and I hope that the listeners that I have the games want to learn more about the sport as well, because that's a big thing I try and do when a specific situation comes up. I try and prepare myself to know what the rules are. So like, there's that safety bag in baseball, in college baseball this year. They've added that safety bag in, and like kind of knowing what the specifics about that is. Like if you're a runner, you have to hit on that bag. If you don't hit on that bag, that doesn't count when you're running in. But then you have to treat the actual white first base as the actual base the rest of the time. So like stuff like that, being able to explain those rules and help people understand it more. Um, that's something I try and take ownership of, especially when I'm solo. But when I'm with somebody, allowing them the platform to teach, grandma and grandpa who's just tuning in and trying to watch their son play their, first college baseball game, then they understand X, Y, and Z that's happening in the game and why a balk was just called or whatever it was that maybe when they were watching, a high school stream of them playing that didn't have an audio broadcaster on it or something, and they were going, well, they keep on calling something. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why this is being called. Um, then maybe it gives an explanation. Maybe it helps them fall in love with the sport and get the sport a little bit more. So I think that's kind of the difference is whether it's me trying to do what I can solo or being able to allow a color commentator to kind of teach and expand knowledge of the niches of the game, whether it be rules or strategy. but allow them to kind of take people in because I think the more you understand a game, the more you grow to love it.
Great, answer you had there. I was wondering when it comes to being the voice of one team, like you get to do in the summer with the range riders versus, kind of having to come in and do freelance. How is that? How are you able to build sort of relationships with players and coaches for the storytelling aspect of that in two different kind of situations?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier with the range riders. One, because I've been established here. There's been no other voice of the range riders, so um, I have sort of an alignment with the brand in general. I know the history really well of the team, so it's easy for guys to be able to say, like, hey, what's this bus ride to Billings, Montana like? And so they're able to, ask me, or like, hey, I had one guy who was finishing up his college degree, and we were going on this one bus ride, and he was like, oh no, we're out of service. Like, okay, it'll probably pop back up soon. And I was like, it's not going to come back soon. This is about 2 hours straight without no cell service. So I don't know what you're going to do for your test you take it or whatever. Like there's this knowledge and familiarity with the league and the ballparks and being able to help these guys out in a set and like this the scoring nature of things. Like I'm the guys they talk to if they want to hit or want an error overturned to a hit, and I'm kind of their communicator to be able to say, yeah, I'll go to the official score for this road team. I'll kind of vouch for you and kind of show them the video and say what the argument is here, and all sorts of stuff like that. Like so, them realizing players and coaches, them realizing how I can benefit them beyond just my broadcasting stuff, but everything else I do for the team and how I want to um, you know, be able to help them be the best versions and best players that they can be. I think that's really well known to our team now, and especially when we come in and we start a new year, there's probably 10 to 15 returners from last year's team, and so all those guys I have an immediate rapport with, and like guys are not just going to trust you automatically because you say you're the broadcaster and this is your fourth year being the broadcaster of the team. Um, they're going to trust you based off what the other guys tell you and based off like basically how you speak about them during the highs and lows of broadcasts. And I think that's something that's really important. There's a clip that's making the round right now, actually today, from a Jupiter Hammerheads game last night, where there was 22 walks issued. It was a really messy, sloppy game. And Pitching Ninja, who is a well-followed baseball account, retweeted it and had a compilation and because said like, and the announce like there was 22 walks last night, and the announcers roasted them. And this clip, they're saying, "Oh, I could go out there if you give me a chance to warm up my arm and be able to throw it in the zone and help this team out." And it's like, even during blowouts, you can almost guarantee the parents of the pitchers are watching, the girlfriend of the pitchers watching, their advisor, their coaches, their former coaches, like, and you have to find a way to let out your frustrations because it's not easy to watch your team walk 22 players. Like it's frustrating because you're saying just throw it in the zone. At least you'll have a chance if you can make your defense work. Like, and I get that. That's a hard part about being a broadcaster, especially when you're traveling with the team and knowing how good they can be and seeing their highs and their lows. But you got to find a way to balance it, and you got to find a way to realize that I'm going to have to sit on a bus with these guys for 8 hours. And if I'm going to say anything now that I couldn't explain to them or say to their face, essentially, then I probably shouldn't say it because you have uh, a duty as a journalist um, and as a storyteller to be able to accurately say what's happening in the game. But you also have a duty to um, be able to do those things in a way where you can then turn around and also ask these guys to help you storytell. And am I gonna tell you about, you know, this really impactful experience that I had in high school that changed my baseball career if I just heard you say that you could be a better pitcher than me, and said that while my mom was listening and she immediately texted me about it. Like everything you say is not going to be perfect, but there is a balance. So like the the pro and the con of being able to be a lot closer with the guys and learn their stories a lot easier is you have to manage uh, those relationships better in terms of what you say on the broadcast. So like that's what I'm trying to get at for that, because it is a lot easier to interact with the players and the team because you're traveling with them and you're seeing them through a lot of these moments. You also see a lot of things that you're not going to ever share on the broadcast. What they do after the games, whether they hang out at their hotel or whether they go and do something that maybe you wouldn't do if you were starting the next day or something like that. So you're never going to say that, and that's where you find the balance of what I'm going to share and what I'm not going to share. And um, I've been fortunate that I think the players within the Range Riders organizations have been able to pass along positive kind of notes of how I cover the team and that I do it fairly. And that even though those moments that are rough, a bad error that loses a game, a walk off walk, and the guy pitching it, I'm still able to, um, not lose any respect and still be able to be a valued member of the organization. The freelance side, it's really hard to get those deep stories. Something that I love to be able to share is like, the stories that explain the lowest moments in somebody's career or where they've come from that helped them get there. And you only learn that if you're eating a post game meal with them and you're saying like, hey, like I saw that you didn't play for 2 years. Like what happened there? And maybe it was a Tommy John surgery. Maybe it was the fact that they left the game of baseball for a year because, a parent passed away or something like that. And I think those stories like ingratiate fans to players a lot to be able to hear some of the human moments that they went through. Um, but the tough part is like, like I said, my schedule, I'm flying in, I'm getting a rental car and I'm showing up and I'm lucky if I see the back end of batting practice. And while I'm doing that, I'm trying to get um, set up with the production staff and figure out what they're going to, kind of the graphics they're going to show, all that other stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's really difficult. I think it's a lot of leaning on your color commentators if you have them. I'm lucky that one of our players for the Range Riders, I helped him kind of get in the door to be the color commentator for Washington baseball this spring. So there's a couple games where they needed a color commentator. He played for us and he went to the University of Washington. He lives in the Seattle area. So I said, hey, would you be interested at all? And he started off really rough, but he's really kind of grown into it. And also he trains there during the off season as he's preparing for his professional season. And so when I say, tell me this story about like this guy, he had a really bad batting average his sophomore year, but he's really come on since. And he'll go, oh yeah, he actually changed his batting stance completely and this and that. And so being able to lean on the people that do know the program, listen actively to your color commentator, whether they're telling you stuff on or off the air, and really kind of being a sponge just of information wherever you can get it is I think the most important thing when trying to understand those deeper stories when you're freelance. But the nice thing is being able to have some rhythm in terms of covering the University of Washington baseball team. Um, I've really been able to get to know the team, and I don't travel with the team. I don't see most of the midweek games in person. I don't call those, but just every weekend being able to get out there and keeping tabs on the midweek games a lot, watching part of them and understanding still what the story of their season is, has been really important. And I hope done some justice to when I've been able to call games on the weekends.
Right, and there was a lot of great info you spilled out there. I know about, definitely as you mentioned, a piggyback kind of like with freelancing, it's or when you're stepping into a situation harder
Yeah.
than being the voice of a team, you get way more insight just being there every day. And I would say, great that you brought up the part about balancing kind of the criticism and everything. I always felt that for me, if there's anybody who needs to get almost a little more deeper at the criticism. Let's say if they wanted to on a bad night, I almost leave that up to the color guy because they've played the
Yeah,
game. They could say that and kind of get away with it almost, or it would make sense, even if you kind of could say the same thing. It's just not going to come off right because I wasn't able to do that. But let's say a
yeah,
pitcher, he could throw the strikes, or for example, in that 22 walk game. So I would say as the play-by-play guy, you got to know your place and don't step into it. You can not that you can't say, well, it's a tough night here, like obviously stuff like that. But going
yeah,
as deep with that criticism always, a line you got to walk. And as you said, a lot of stuff you can and can't say, and you kind of learn that being the voice of a team. But going to the next point, I was wondering if you're ever broadcasting a sport you don't know as much about, how do you kind of uh, go into basically doing that broadcast? Because that might be a lot of people's first opportunity if they're listening.
yeah. To just tack on to what you were saying there right at the end, I think I learned very early on there was somebody that was giving advice to Northwoods League broadcasters all in one call, and they said find a way to skirt the blame too. Like if you're the only person and there's a really bad call, like for example, it's kind of tacky to say that call sucked. But if you say the head coach of the Glacier Range Riders, like he really didn't like that call, or the crowd really didn't like that call, then you're skirting blame. You're not saying I think that call sucked. You are saying, or like John Smith, the head coach of the Range Riders, really has to be frustrated with the control tonight. Like that's a way for me to say this team has not been accurate. They've walked a lot of batters, but and the coach is probably mad about it. That's a fair assumption to make, but that's different than me saying I could go out there and throw strikes better than these guys, right? And so that's just something where it's another way of like deflecting to the color commentator. If that's not an option there is still ways of deflecting to the crowd is probably frustrated with the amount of walks thrown tonight. Then I'm not frustrated with it, and I'm just the messenger, rather than that putting yourself in that scenario where you're directly criticizing, which it's hard to avoid, but it happens. Your question about covering a new sport. So I had to do this spring because probably about a week and a half out to go. I got reached out to by the University of Washington, and they said, "Hey, I know you've never done it before, but would you be open to doing gymnastics? We have two gymnastics meets coming up, and I couldn't make one of them. It was just a conflict already with a prior commitment. But the other one, I was like, yeah, sure, because they just said we trust that you're savvy enough to be able to figure it out, and you'll have a color commentator with you. Um, so for me, it was a lot of just like listening to the uh, similar level broadcast. So it was University of Washington was playing Maryland. So I just listened to part of the University of Washington's last meet. I watched a part of the one that they had like that night that I got asked. And I watched a lot of Maryland's, and it wasn't necessarily to understand like the certain kind of note taking that I put in a spotting chart about them. I wasn't trying to like listen to, oh, this person's really good at bars or whatever. Like I was certainly listening to that, but it was like, how does the rhythm and balance work? When does the color commentator speak? When do I speak as the play-by-play commentator? What sort of things should I say in the kind of time frame that I have? And so I thought I kind of understood it. I watched some Olympics too, which is different though, because a dual meet is like kind of a back and forth. The Olympics is just it's arranged differently, kind of the timing of it all. So it was really the most beneficial to lock in and figure out, okay, how do college meets work? And let me make sure I understand the fundamentals of how it works so that if I get to like, because college gymnastics, 5 people are selected, the top 4 scores count. Or no, 6 people already. See, this is how well I know gymnastics. 6 people are selected, the top 5 scores count. So like a two, and you can get 10 as a max. So I just needed to make sure I learned that and kind of lock that into place so I know the fundamentals of what's happening. And then I also know generally how the broadcasting side of it works with when does a play-by-play talk, when does a color talk. Watching it back, okay, the color is going to speak through pretty much the entirety of the event, which is nice. I don't know what a double 620 round off is. The color commentator is going to take that. I don't necessarily need to know that. What I need to know is, hey, this is what this person got their last time. This is their season high, and they're coming off an ankle injury last year or something like that. Like, here's kind of in general what are the good things to say, and then for the most part, I can opt out of the specifics, and that's something that the more gymnastics maybe I pick up here and there, I can learn then. So that's kind of how I approach it. Trying to listen to that timing, and then it's always different when you actually get into the gauntlet. The gymnastics meet went way faster than I thought. There was way too little time to talk. I had so many notes and I barely said any of them. But again, I'd rather be over prepared and have more to say that I leave on the table than under prepared and not have enough to say. So yeah, it was certainly a learning experience, and there was definitely different moments. But I also lead on my color commentator a lot, and we had a production meeting, and I was already firing questions at her and saying, "Okay, so clarify this for me, clarify that for me. What are the stakes? Why does this meet matter? What is the University of Washington trying to get out of this? What is the University of Maryland trying to get out of this? All those questions that I'm maybe going to ask for her again on the broadcast. I want to get it ahead of time so I could properly prepare my open um, and kind of the storylines for the meet that I'm going to have in the back of my mind, kind of always there. And then obviously, yeah, just lean on the color commentator a lot to explain the things. Because if I don't get something, there's probably somebody out there that's watching that maybe doesn't get it either. And so trying to meet the audience where they are and think about who's listening was a big goal for me.
All right, it's a great story. It kind of reminds me, I believe, Rich Burke, I think it was, when he was doing an Olympics, some unique Olympic sport, randomly got called
Yep.
in like literally a few hours before the event to do that and hadn't really known the sport or anything about it. So a lot of your points, like sticking to the basics and following the color
Yep.
commentator, is a big thing when you get in that position. But last couple for you here, Scott, I was wondering, what's your advice for keeping maybe physically strong, like vocally, if the vocal cords start getting stressed when you're doing like game and stuff, or how do you manage that?
Mine is pretty simple, but I just like hydrate. It starts with hydrating. That's something because you talk so much, like hydrating, always having a water bottle on you, and I'm a big Gatorade person. So in general, I'll pound the Gatorade during the summer as well. It's not the best option maybe in general, but it's also probably better like energy drinks, maybe higher kind of caffeinated stuff kind of overwhack me. I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm not a energy drink drinker. I mostly like Gatorade and water during the summer pretty much. And then orange juice as well, like vitamin C, always staying on top of that. I think just in general, um, trying to get sleep when you can and just kind of general things. Act as if you're always act as if you're on the cusp of getting sick because like sometimes you are with the amount that you talk and the amount that you travel and the amount that you kind of work odd hours and wake up to catch a bus at 6 a.m. and everything like that. Like always treat yourself that you're on the cusp of getting sick. So do what you do and what works for you that way. Which for me, it's drinking orange juice, drinking vitamin C, getting vitamin C gummies, drinking, throwing emergencies in my Gatorade or something like that. Like just always kind of over uh, over health in it because yeah, it is something where you can get hit. I got really sick and like my lymph nodes swelled up, got really swollen at the beginning of last season, and I like almost completely couldn't talk. And it was just kind of this random thing um, where just a case of strep throat at the worst possible time. And your voice is your livelihood, so you gotta keep it. You gotta stay ahead of it. Um, and yeah, just always act like you're about to get sick and do what you do in those scenarios.
All right, I think that's great advice. And my last question, like, what is your favorite stadium to broadcast from? And do you have a most unique stadium setup you've ever like can remember in your mind?
I mean, it's kind of basic, but I my favorite stadium that I've ever broadcast from is Glacier Bank Park, where we call home. We're the first professional sporting team in this valley, and I was born here. I was born about 10 minutes from where Glacier Bank Park is now. Um, this team didn't exist until the fall of 2021 when they announced they were coming around. But um, even though they didn't exist, it was always kind of like this dream job, or at least dream job for where I'm at right now. Um, and so I was really lucky that I got my foot in the door when I did and got to see this stadium built from the ground up, and got to call the first game in the stadium, got to, you know, practically help put it together. Um, and so be like there's just so many moments. I've called every single game that's happened there, and last year I was lucky enough that we hosted a playoff game versus our rival down the road, and then we hosted a championship game and won the first one. And our owners and our front office are really invested in the fans here and in the players and in the experience that we're trying to provide. So um, it's a beautiful ballpark. It's a state of the art ballpark. But at the end of the day, like I think sports and the memories that sports can provide and the moments that sports can provide really make any venue what it is. Um, and for me, that's why like there's always a certain kind of nostalgia feeling almost with a ballpark that's only a couple of years old. But for me, um, it's really where I felt like um, I've kind of come into my own as a broadcaster, and I, you know, have absolutely loved it. Um, Unique ballpark experiences. There's definitely, like, I mean, in the Northwoods League, in the New England Collegiate Baseball League, even in the Pioneer League, like you get such a wide array of options. I'd say my most unique one was when I was in the New England Collegiate Baseball League, and we played the Martha's Vineyard Sharks, which is on Martha's Vineyard, which is an island for those who don't know. And uh, just the travel there, it's about a 2 or 3 hour bus ride from Bristol, Connecticut. And everybody just takes their stuff. You walk on a big ferry, passenger ferry. The bus doesn't go on you with it, but there are some cars that go on it as well. But the whole team just goes on a ferry for like another 30, 45 minutes. You get to the island, and then there's this old yellow school bus from like the 70s that's there to pick you up, and they pick up all the teams when they come and visit. And then you drive to the middle of the island. So it's not cool like you're on the beach or something. You're just in the middle of the island. Um, and the lights are really low. So the visiting fielders who don't know the lights very well, they always lose the ball in the lights. There's a weird fog that comes in because it's this island in the middle of the Atlantic practically. Um, and so you play the game. We never won there. It was a horrible game every time we played there. We played horribly. The team's always pretty good because it's pretty easy to get college players to want to come to Martha's Vineyard for the summer. And then you have to go home that night, and you go to a dock that the big ferry that brings, the big passenger ferry doesn't run past 9 o'clock. So you have to go to a dock where a fishing boat, like a glorified fishing boat, picks you and your team of 25, 30 guys up. And then you just like take this boat back, and half the guys are getting seasick because they don't do well on boats. Half the guys are, like pissed off because they didn't play well. And then you have to be on the boat with the umpires too, because they have to get back to the mainland as well. So that's a little bit awkward, especially if somebody had a bad call they didn't like, or somebody got tossed, or whatever it was. Um, but every time I was on that boat ride, because I think we did it 3 or 4 times that summer, it was just like this moment where you just kind of look out across and you just see some lights of either the mainland, Cape Cod, or back on Martha's Vineyard, and you just realize like this is crazy. Like you know, I talk about a sport, I talk about a game that's happening in front of me, and I just try and enjoy every moment. And here I am on a fishing boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night, and so yeah, it's just those moments that you know in total, it wasn't all that enjoyable, but sports and working in sports and just riding the waves as they come will take you to some crazy places, and the goal is just to enjoy it as best you can.
Right, I think a great answer, and it's funny, the ferry rides for people that don't know, kind of common in the summer collegiate ball. They do that in the
Yep.
West Coast League when you're going to Canada and up there to like teams
Yeah,
like Victoria.
Victoria.
So it's
Yeah.
a big thing as well. But a lot of those travel stories. And Scott, it was great to be joined by you. I wish you the best of luck with the upcoming season. Obviously, you have that all the on the with the Glacier Range Riders, and then I know it'll be heavy college again as we get into the fall, and there's some sure
Yeah.
some events you're finishing up on as well this season. But again, it was great to speak with you, and I wish you the best of luck for sure.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate you.